Welcome to the quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Brock Armstrong, and I'm the Get Fit Guy. If you've been reading the health news lately, you'll probably know that around 30 million Americans magically just failed their blood pressure test. Now, as much as I'd like to make a political joke or a reference to the stock market or even a fast food quip here, the reason wasn't any of those heart-palpitating factors. What happened was that the American Heart Association lowered the measuring stick on what they consider to be a healthy blood pressure. As of a couple weeks ago, high blood pressure will now be defined as 130/80 millimeters of mercury or greater. That means a bunch of us may need to start being more diligent than we previously were when the measurement was 140/90. That is, if we don't want to get hounded by our GPs. The new recommendation is a direct response to the results of a large, federally funded study called SPRINT that was published in 2015 in the New England Journal of Medicine. Let's start with this. If your heart can take it easy and not work as hard to pump all your life-giving blood, then the force that is exerted on your arteries will decrease, and that will, in turn, lower your blood pressure. We all know that consistent physical activity can make your heart stronger, so it follows that a stronger heart muscle will pump your blood with less effort. Also, we've known for a long time that simply by getting more movement in your day, you can lower your systolic blood pressure, and that's the top number in the reading, by about 4 to 9 millimeters of mercury. And you know what? That's as good as some of the most popular blood pressure medications out there. Now, if you're one of the lucky ones with blood pressure still in the desirable range even after this slight tweak, well, then regular workouts can help you prevent your blood pressure from, getting out of control as you age. And another bonus is that regularly getting your sweat on can help you maintain a healthy body weight and a healthy ratio of muscle to fat, which is also a darn good way to keep your blood pressure under wraps. What's the catch? Well, the key is to exercise regularly and to keep it up. The Mayo Clinic says that it takes about 3 months of regular workouts to see a meaningful change in those blood pressure numbers. And those changes will only last as long as you keep that gym membership active. So, how much exercise do you need? Well, the good news is that you don't have to spend hours and hours in the gym every single day. All you need to do is simply get out there and add some moderate physical activities to your day. And we're not talking about anything heroic here either. For most of you fit folks out there, this will be a literal brisk walk in the park. Some options include walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, mowing the lawn, shoveling the walk at this time of year, dancing, or, any combination of the above. The only stipulation that the Department of Health and Human Services recommends is that you aim for at least 30 minutes of aerobic activity most days of the week. Easy, right? Now, if you can't see yourself doing that much exercise all at once, don't forget about sprinkling in some of those 10-minute workouts that I bring up on a very regular basis throughout your day. And also, take a look at my article about making time to exercise. It's really about prioritizing it in the end. So, how hard do you need to exercise? Well, in a study on how exercise intensity affects blood pressure and heart rate on obese adolescents, after a 6-month intervention, systolic, diastolic, and mean blood pressure decreased from both high and low-intensity workouts, but waist circumference, heart rate, and HRV, which is heart rate variability, showed beneficial changes only in the high-intensity group. So they concluded that aerobic exercise training set at a high intensity compared with a low intensity had additional benefits on abdominal obesity and cardiovascular health well beyond the benefits that they saw in the blood pressure. A second study in 2009 on exercise intensity and high blood pressure showed that higher and lower intensity training reduced systolic blood pressure to a similar extent, but lower intensity does not alter ambulatory blood pressure. Only the higher intensity training affected the anthropometric characteristics of blood lipids in a beneficial way, which is a super fancy and hard to pronounce way of saying that it also improved body dimensions such as height, weight, girth, and body fat composition, as well as cholesterol and triglycerides. So, as usual, I would suggest doing both. And it will likely come as no surprise that I also suggest throwing in some good old resistance training. One quick note though about weight training and blood pressure. Yes, lifting heavy weights can cause a surprising but temporary increase in your blood pressure, depending on how much and how heavy you lift. But don't be scared off. Weightlifting also bestows some super long-term benefits to blood pressure that definitely outweigh the scary risk of that temporary spike. Now, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in the gym, but I've never seen anyone taking their blood pressure at the squat rack, so you'll just have to take my word for it on this one. Weightlifting can also improve other aspects of your cardiovascular health that will certainly reduce your overall risks. In fact, the Department of Health and Human Services recommends incorporating strength training exercises of all types into your workout regime a couple of times per week. If you need some help getting started on your resistance training regime, well, you can check out the article called How to Use Weightlifting Machines, and check out the tips in the article called How Many Times Per Week Should You Lift Weights. But a good place to start would be with a protocol called 5x5. This workout does require a gym or access to some weights such as dumbbells or barbells, and it's quite simple. With as heavy a weight as you can lift with good form, you do 5 sets of 5 reps each of bench press, deadlift, back squat, shoulder press, and power clean. For some added benefits like fat loss, make sure during the 90 to 120 second recovery periods between each set that you perform some easy mobility exercises or some core exercises. Things like opposite arm and leg extensions, planks, side lunges, jump rope, or even some sun salutations for all you yoga fans out there. I would suggest doing this 5x5 twice per week. Now back to some other ways to lower your blood pressure. There's this device called Zona Plus that looks kind of like an old school joystick or that electric razor that your dad bought you when you turned 17. And it claims to be the new scientific breakthrough in controlling your blood pressure. The website says that based on technology used to help fighter pilots who notoriously need to control their blood pressure so they don't pass out during the G-forces they have to endure, the Zona Plus therapy makes positive physical changes in your body that naturally promote healthy blood pressure. Plus, it's safe to use and completely drug-free, and all you need is 12 minutes and a comfortable place to sit. During that 12 minutes, you squeeze the device in one hand for specific amounts of time at specific amounts of pressure. And I assume it's acting on the same mechanisms that make isometric hand grip exercises so effective. 2 studies conducted at Canada's McMaster University showed that hand grip exercises can make blood vessels more flexible, can improve blood vessel function, and lower high blood pressure. The subjects in isometric study number 1 performed 4 2-minute isometric hand grip squeezes with a 3-minute rest in between the contractions. They specified that the intensity of the contractions should be equal to 30% of the subject's maximum squeezing effort. They performed the isometric exercises 3 times per week for a total of 8 weeks. Then the subjects in study number 2 performed 4 contractions of 50% of their maximum squeezing effort and held it for 45 seconds, followed by a 1-minute rest. Study number 2 went on for 5 days per week for 5 weeks. In study number 1, all 8 participants had a significant decline in both systolic and diastolic resting blood pressures. In study number 2, subjects experienced significant mean declines in resting systolic and diastolic pressures, but not quite as significantly as in study number 1. But even hand grip devices like the Zona Plus have to be used for 4 to 6 weeks to see any results, and are also not a substitute for regular aerobic exercise. While they can lower some people's blood pressure, the systolic blood pressure specifically, you are still advised to do some brisk walking, swimming, cycling, or any of the other activities that strengthen your heart, your lungs, and your bones. So, if you're really concerned, I say, why not do both? Now, in the end, should you worry about these new blood pressure guidelines? Well, first off, I am not a doctor, and I will certainly not give you medical advice. But if you get beyond those frightening headlines, you will see that the new guidelines are actually for anyone with a significant risk of heart attack or stroke, and not across the board for the general public. And that is important to consider, seeing as anyone previously with a significant risk was likely already being monitored closely and advised to lower their blood pressure, even if they fell close to the new 130/80 measurement. Another thing to note is, for the study, blood pressure results were averaged between 3 separate measurements, and those measurements were taken after 5 minutes of quietly relaxing in a room. Now, when the heck was the last time your blood pressure was measured that way? In the real world, a blood pressure of 130 may show up as a blood pressure of 150 in a busy clinic after driving in traffic and then hoofing it up the street. Now, I'm not poo-pooing these recommendations. After all, high blood pressure is second, right behind smoking, as a preventable cause of heart attacks and strokes. But I am saying that reading the fine print is always important, especially when the chief recommendation is to, and I quote, take more drugs or increase the dosages. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to balk at that statement, especially when we know that we have alternatives like diet, exercise, meditation, and stress relief interventions to consider first. So, for now, I'll see you at the gym, and I'll bring my blood pressure cuff with me, just in case. For more blood pressure info, blood vessel tips, and to join in the heart palpitating conversation, head over to facebook.com/getfitguy, twitter.com/getfitguy, or getfitguy.quickanddirtytips.com, where you can find transcripts of all the Get Fit Guy episodes. And my name is Brock Armstrong, and I'm the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.